Okay, just a quick one in order to raise a question, and I will raise that question towards the end. In Parliament the other day, John McDonnell, independent MP for Hayes and Harlington, raised the question of capping the number of private hire vehicles in the capital. He queried if the Transport Secretary would take steps to introduce a statutory cap, and the call comes amid ongoing concerns over the exponential rise in the number of private hire vehicles operating across London, and subsequently the detrimental impact that this is having on congestion, road safety, and that's a key point here, and the taxi trade. Just take a look at this snippet.
Literally every car in central London right now is an Uber. Look, Uber in front of me, Uber in front of him, Uber there, another Uber here, that's another Uber, behind me Uber. And look, all of those cars parked to the left, that's going from here all the way to Leicester Square. Leicester Square, Trafalgar Square. This is what London's full of now. Look, minicab, normal car, minicab, black cab, minicab, 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 crackhead, minicab, 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 minicab. Anyways, minicab, cab, minicab, 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 black cab, minicab, black cab, minicab, minicab, minicab.
Whilst I don't believe a statutory cap will ever be on the table, it seems completely logical that TfL and local authorities across the UK would want to seek powers to implement their own quantitative restrictions as a strategic approach tailored to managing urban transport. I mean, don't take my word for it. It was a concern expressed by Mike Brown, the former TfL commissioner, back in 2017.
And actually, the biggest cause of congestion in London streets at the moment, I can tell you, is caused by the proliferation of private hire vehicles, as I acknowledged earlier on, and Steve and I would agree with that, and if I may, on the inefficient use of white vans with individual packages being delivered to offices around the city.
However, since then, Transport for London, Taxi and Private Hire, along with the Mayor's Office, have shifted their stance and are no longer actively pursuing measures to limit the number of vehicles. And this raises the important question as to why.
You don't even know what you're asking me to confess.
Other cities in Europe have benefited from retrospective quantitative restrictions. Why couldn't it be a policy in London? We've also experienced the benefits of reduced vehicle numbers due to cultural holidays, improving work levels and reducing congestion. Again, evidence as to why this policy would be good for London. One of the reasons Helen Chapman, Director of Licensing, Regulation and Charging, gave for not pursuing the government for a cap on numbers is that cross-border hiring needs to be dealt with first, and that is potentially on the cards. But it does not, nor should it, negate the fact that it is wholly permissible to also lobby the government for the relevant powers to limit numbers. In fact, Helen Chapman hadn't even prepared herself to make a coherent argument against it when challenged by Assembly member Ellie Baker.
Just to interject, this doesn't make any sense, Helen, because if you had the power to, on the cap, if you had the power to cap, you could, of course, not use it, or you could set the cap so high that it didn't interfere or didn't drive cross-border hiring. They're saying just because it would drive cross-border hiring, there's a reason not to ask for it. Doesn't make any sense on that basis. What's the real reason that you're not asking for it?
No, I mean that what? Sorry.
No.
Oh, sorry. No, I mean that genuinely is the reason that we're not asking for it, is because we feel that won't address the problem, and actually the problem that we're seeing, a growing problem is
it's not. You wouldn't use a cap to address cross-border hiring. You would use it to address other things, many of which we've discussed in this meeting already. I mean, I don't always agree with TfL, but I do regard them as a logical organisation, and
right.
Something doesn't stack up here. So what's the real reason that you won't ask for a cap?
So I mean, I don't think there's no hidden agenda here at all. There's nothing, there's nothing that we're trying to hide. We don't believe that a cap is necessary, but we do believe that cross-border hiring is an urgent problem that needs to be resolved.
We're not disagreeing with you about cross-border hiring, but you now don't think that a cap is necessary, or the power to cap is necessary for issues around drivers' earnings, congestion, safety. You don't think that would be useful?
Well, no, I think, it's just, we have asked for a cap in the past. We have been told that the government is not minded and hasn't been minded to take that recommendation forward. So I think we've moved our efforts into asking for cross-border hiring. So it's not that there's a specific I can't think of the word, a specific reason for or against a cap. It's just we've been told that isn't going to happen.
Right. So you're not going to ask for it, you don't think you're going to get it?
Yes, we've focused our efforts on cross-border hiring, which we, as you say and you agree, is urgent.
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose that's not how I understand lobbying works, that you only ask for things you're going to get.
Well,
but at least that is some explanation.
Of course, Ellie Baker was right to suggest that it doesn't make sense not to pursue a cap on private hire. Just because policies around cross-border hiring need to be implemented first, it doesn't diminish the strategic value of establishing a cap for a plethora of reasons. And relying on the free market to dictate numbers, which are Seb Dance's words, not mine, is hardly a viable transport strategy either. In London, every single mode of transport operates under strict limits. By their very structured nature, train numbers are regulated, bus numbers are managed to ensure efficiency, and there is a natural cap on the number of taxis due to drivers having to study the knowledge. Allowing private hire service to operate freely and without control is wholly inconsistent and, again, doesn't make any strategic sense whatsoever. As a taxi driver, what really frustrates me about this is after we demonstrated for a whole week at Bank Junction to highlight the restrictions placed on taxis, representatives from the ITA were invited to a meeting with the corporation, with which I attended. I completely understood that this wasn't a negotiation, but it was still an opportunity to voice our concerns and potentially gain insights that could guide our next steps. And as fortune would have it, I had access to the collision data for the City of London, which revealed that taxis were involved in the fewest collisions of any transport mode. And moreover, there hadn't been any serious incidents involving taxis in the 5 years leading up to the decision to impose these restrictions. And this information was particularly compelling, especially since they had branded the scheme Bank on Safety. And you've got to remember that we are discussing a different era here, one in which we genuinely believe that information and facts actually meant something. And whilst they agreed that taxis boasted an excellent safety record, they also argued that it was the sheer volume of vehicles on the road that contributed to the increased risk of accidents. And there's a certain logic to that perspective, isn't there? Though I'm yet to be convinced of the benefits of forcing taxis onto longer, more circuitous routes, you can see the rationale. You can also see where I am headed with this, can't you? Whilst the argument is conveniently used for policies to restrict taxis, the same certainly doesn't hold when it comes to the massive increase in private hire numbers. Private hire vehicles that are clogging up our streets morning, noon and night. Now, if I could only move past my caustic cynicism, I might reconsider whether my scepticism stems from concerns about TfL losing licence fee money or a simple desire by TfL to avoid responsibility. And perhaps there are entirely different factors at play. Who knows? However, one thing is crystal clear. If TfL wants skeptics like me to take Vision Zero seriously, they must acknowledge that the relentless increase in private hire vehicles needs to be significantly reduced. And everybody, absolutely everybody, understands this. That is, everybody except the bods at TfL.